Hi, my name is Adam Lantheaume. I'm from the Boston Shaker, thebostonshaker.com, and we're here at Grand in Somerville to talk about bitters. There's two kinds of bitters. We're going to focus on the non-potable bitters. Potable bitters are ones you can drink, like Campari or Fernet Branca. We're going to talk about non-potable, which are kind of used more like a spice, and a lot of people think that bitters are one thing, and we're going to show that there are actually lots of different flavors and kinds of bitters. Specifically, bitters are a extract of herbs and spices and barks. They do have alcohol in them. That's what kind of pulls the flavor out. But like I said before, you can't drink them. If you tried to, and I recommend you do, taste it, you wouldn't enjoy it very much. You might be wondering, why aren't bitters all over the place now? Where'd they go, and why are they coming back? Well, originally, before Prohibition, there were multiples and multiples, dozens of varieties of bitters. And Prohibition came along. And they were originally all created to start for medicinal purposes, to kind of help an upset stomach. You might have actually been either from a parent or a grandparent, or be out at a bar where you said, I'm not feeling well, and they give you bitters and soda. That was the original, and then people started using it as a flavor enhancer and additive. So the Prohibition came. There were dozens of them, and there's only so much to go around. Angostura made it through Prohibition. They're made in Trinidad, and so they kind of had the world. A lot of the bartenders in the United States went over to Paris and London to continue their craft while the U.S. went into Prohibition. So they kind of brought Angostura with them, and there was enough demand to keep the company going. Same thing with Peychaud's. Peychaud's had a very small audience in New Orleans that kept them afloat, but all these other bitters disappeared. And then as kind of this cocktail renaissance has been going on, where people are digging back into history, it's one of the only truly American items, like jazz. Cocktails started in America. So as people are digging in and kind of getting more interested in the history of cocktails, the demand for bitters is growing because people are now starting to recreate old recipes that called for orange bitters, or called for Abbott's bitters, or called for some other bitters that either people start trying to make at home, and then if there's enough demand, like the orange, then they hit commercial. So that's kind of where the trend kind of came back in, and hopefully will continue and even expand, where there's a company called Bitterman's Bitters that are making Molay bitters, or they're bringing back, they have tiki bitters. They have exotic flavors that maybe weren't pre-Prohibition, but are going to be really important in today's cocktail movement. So that's kind of where they came from, where they went, why they went away, and hopefully where they're going. Bitters are used as a flavor enhancer. Similar how a cook would use salt or spices in a dish, you're going to use bitters in that kind of the same way. You're going to add just a dash or two. Sometimes people go up into a half dozen dashes, depending on what kind of drink, but it's really meant to help the other flavors in the cocktail and either highlight or smooth out ingredients. In fact, Angostura helps quiet down citrus in a drink, is one of the things that people use Angostura for. In fact, traditionally, a cocktail, as it was originally defined, required bitters as an ingredient, spirits, sugar, and bitters, as opposed to something like a shrub or a flip, or there's a handful of other, what we all dub as a cocktail now. There were subcategories, and it would only really be a cocktail if it had bitters in it. So that's another bitters tidbit. So first off, we're going to go into aromatic bitters. Now, aromatic bitters are, everybody kind of knows these. These are Angostura. So much so that usually those names are interchangeable, aromatic and Angostura. But now, as the bitter market expands, the bitters market expands, we're starting to see other companies come out with different flavors, with different versions of aromatic bitters, and they focus on the kind of clove, cinnamon, nutmeg flavor profile, and there's lots of variations. In fact, one thing to note is Angostura, everybody thinks it's from the Angostura tree, that there's Angostura bark in here, but that is not the case. Angostura was where they were invented, in Venezuela. There's no Angostura tree Angostura tree bark in here, although other versions do have the Angostura tree bark. Next is probably the next most popular are orange bitters. Orange bitters are all over vintage cocktails. And if you look through pre-Prohibition books, you'll see orange bitters everywhere. They disappeared for a real long time, and they've finally just started coming back. The first one is Fee Brothers. Fee Brothers Orange Bitters. They're made from a company up in Rochester, New York. And they are kind of on the sweet side. If you had like a really good orange marmalade that has kind of that orange bite to it, but it's sweet, that's what you're going to get from Fee Brothers. And then Gary Regan, who is an author of The Joy of Mixology, said, hey, I want my kind of orange bitters out on the market. And so he came out with a really spicy, it's got a little higher alcohol burn to it for these. These are wonderful. And then just recently, Angostura came out with their own version of orange bitters. And these are really kind of vibrant and citrusy. And each one is kind of useful in its own cocktail. A lot of people will call for one particular flavor over another. So those are orange bitters. And then the last we're going to talk about is Peychaud's bitters. Peychaud's bitters are from New Orleans. Antoine Peychaud made these medicinal bitters, and he would put them in a brandy toddy for his friends using his family recipe of Peychaud's bitters. And they became so popular that now they're sold, and they're instrumental in a cocktail called the Sazerac. The Sazerac cocktail is from New Orleans, and it is rumored to be, if not the most important cocktail, but the first cocktail ever made. And so we kind of have some cocktails out. We kind of just mentioned the Sazerac cocktail. The Sazerac cocktail is sugar doused with Peychaud's bitters and rye. There's an absinthe rinse on the glass. We'll do another video and go over how to make a Sazerac specifically. And then next for the aromatic bitters, we have the Manhattan. Manhattan 2-to-1 rye to sweet vermouth with a cherry garnish is traditional. And those call for Angostura or aromatic bitters. And then lastly, the original martini. A lot of people know the martini with olives in it. Before that, it would be gin, dry vermouth, again a 2-to-1 ratio traditionally, although I like mine with a 3-to-1, and with orange bitters in it, and then a twist of lemon as your garnish. So there's your bitters overview. There are more than one. There's even more than what we have here. They have rhubarb and lemon and cherry and mint, and more coming. Lots of bitters hitting the market as the cocktail scene picks up. But there's your kind of overview, and hopefully you can go out and pick up a bottle and make some cocktails yourself at home utilizing bitters. Thanks.